Happy Wednesday night, everybody. It is time to talk some more stuff around the world of baseball. So kick back, relax, because the latest installment of Hitting Home is live and it starts right now. And welcome everybody back in the Hitting Home, only here on 609 Sports Talk Radio. We are coming to you guys live tonight with all the latest and the greatest around the world of Major League Baseball. And as always, we are your hosts, Sam Nelson, Dustin Reese. Dustin, what's up, brother? How we doing tonight?
Happy as I've been in a long time on a Wednesday because I finally have a shortstop who decides he wants to play baseball.
Yeah, Cubbies had a little bit of a offensive outpouring today, I saw.
I mean, they beat the San Diego Chargers 23-3.
We had an old the 85 Bears defense showed up is what I saw. So look, we got some stuff to talk about. Of course, Dustin and I will go again another 2-on-1 handicap match against that damn grid. We took it down last week. We're gonna take it down again this week. I got screwed by the grid on DA After Dark last night from the NBA side. Not happy. I'm getting revenge tonight. So we'll get revenge on the grid later on in the show. We will talk some more CBA proposals from Major League Baseball. Some of them, which ironically, Dustin, when we saw them last week, we agreed to some of them. So we'll talk about that. And of course, we'll give our studs and duds for the month of June. Another good list of guys that we have that have been performing pretty well throughout the season. Of course, we try to switch it up and give all the players that are having great years the love they deserve. I got a player on mine that I don't think anyone's going to expect. So can't wait to get into that segment. But Dustin, first up on the show, we're talking some New York Mets. Of course, last week, not even 2 years removed from leading the team to the NLCS in 2024, Carlos Mendoza out as New York Mets manager. They fired him last week. Of course, Mets have not been playing good baseball this year. A lot of flaws. And of course, getting swept by the Cubs, of course, was the final straw in the hat that got Mendoza fired. But I think the best way to start this segment is with a question. And the question I'm going to ask is, was Carlos Mendoza the biggest issue in New York and the reason the Mets are off to such a slow start? What do you think about that?
He's the biggest reason. The biggest reason, in my opinion, is just the way that entire organization is constructed, the way that team is constructed. It's built on not only a lot of bad contracts. I mean, you're still paying Bobby Bonilla for another 5 or 6 years yet, but it's built on a ton of bad contracts. A lot of these bad contracts are on aging players, such as Francisco Lindor, who's had injuries this year. Juan Soto's had injuries this year. Their starting staff isn't getting any younger. And the guys they spent the big money on, Bo Bichette, hasn't really produced until probably the last couple of weeks. Kodai Senga is a shell of what he was 3 years ago when the Mets signed him. I mean, the whole Freddie Peralta's having the worst season of his career. Devin Williams has still looked like the Devin Williams that he was with the Yankees. Those type of things you cannot put on the manager because the manager is not the one that signs those players. Those players were signed by David Stearns, who ironically was the Brewers GM for a long time, and it seemed that everything that he did in Milwaukee worked out in his favor, but it's not working out in his favor in New York. I will say, though, I thought Mendoza was going to be fired about the same time Rob Thompson got fired. I'm surprised that the Mets kind of stuck with him as long as they did, knowing the kind of position that team was in. And even if it's not his fault, a new voice needs to be in New York. They need kind of that new voice in charge to try to get that team to turn things around.
And well, I mean, first off, I'm not trying to, continue to pour gasoline on a fire here, but I mean, so far it hasn't been a great first two series post Mendoza. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Phillies, who I mean, to be fair, the Phillies are playing like really good baseball right now, and then they just went down to Toronto and lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays. So not the Phillies start to how they got started when Mattingly took over, but yeah, again, like you said, how can you blame like again, players got to play the game,
Yep.
and that goes in any sport. Players have to play. Players have to produce. I don't. I don't know how you blame a manager for shortcomings from players. And, also, especially this year, I think the Mets this year are just constructed so poorly. I did not agree with them dismantling that entire 2024 team that went to the NLCS when they fielded that team in 2025. Juan Soto should have been the player. Now I'm not trying to attack Juan Soto here, but when they signed Juan Soto was supposed to be the piece to put the 2024 team over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were coming off that Cinderella run. Pete Alonso had a big postseason. Francisco Lindor had big hits in the postseason, including the grand slam to send the Mets over the Phillies in the first round. Sean Manaea pitched his freaking rear end off that year. They had so many things go right for them. Then, unfortunately, the run came to an end strictly because you ran to the big bad beast known as the Los Angeles Dodgers. That would happen to anybody. But
Yep.
the Juan Soto deal should have been the move that put the Mets over the top. However, they didn't address their pitching staff last year when they signed Soto. They were solely relying on outscoring their opponents. And like I know they re-signed Manaea. He wasn't. I mean, look, Manaea had a good year in 24, but you can't expect. You needed to solidify your pitching more last year, and you didn't. This year, you choose to completely dismantle that entire team. You let Pete Alonso leave in free agency. You traded Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien, which, by the way, I
Yep.
understand that saved the Mets like, I don't know, $5 to $8 million. I don't know what world that made them better. Because Marcus
It made it
Semien has
worse
been
because
a
at least
shell.
Brandon Nim was a good defender.
Yeah, and I mean Marcus Semien is like literally barely a shell of what he used to be. And I mean, there's a reason the Rangers are like, yeah, let's try to get this. Let's try to offload this contract here because it's not like Nimmo was entering years where he wasn't good. He was still producing over 20 homers and driving in over 75 to 80 runs. Not to mention he was a thorn in the Phillies side
Right.
for my entire life. So I don't understand. I didn't understand that move. Then they completely, once again, for like the third straight off season, they lowballed Pete Alonso. Well, a second straight off season, they lowballed Pete Alonso. I don't understand why that you did that because not only was Pete Alonso one of the best Mets on the team, that's your protection to Juan Soto, and you did nothing to replace him. Okay, you signed Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette to me is not lineup protection. He is a guy you put in front of Soto, not behind him. So I don't understand. Now, look, whatever's happened with Freddie Peralta this year, I
No.
can't blame that on Mendoza either. I don't know what's going on with Freddie Peralta. This is just once again, you learn by your mistakes, and the mistake you make, don't do deals with the Milwaukee Brewers because when you do, this is what happens.
I'm not going to necessarily say that. I think part of Freddie Peralta's struggles are you went from the smallest market in baseball in Milwaukee where, yes, you have media attention on you, but it's strictly just state media. It's like regional media, your baseball world. Now you're in a city that has the largest media market. A lot of players don't do well in that New York City spotlight. And I think Freddie Peralta is one of those players that, as good of a pitcher as he is, for him to have the most success possible, he needs to be in a smaller market where he's not in kind of one of those bright lights of a big market.
Yeah, because he is and he got roughed up again today, going against Toronto. He gave up 10 earned against the
Yep.
Phillies. That was about 2 weeks ago in Philadelphia when they were out there, and then tonight he gets shelled, and they got shelled for 6 more. It's just been a really rough year for Freddie Peralta, but again, I'm trying not to continue to harp on 2024, but this is the crazy part of baseball. Rob Thompson got fired this year. Yes, Rob Thompson had a good run to a World Series. That at least was 4 years ago. We're not even 2 years removed from the Mets reaching the NLCS. We haven't even hit a second calendar year with that yet. But once again, they put a team together this year that you could just. Yes, we talked about it. We've talked about it on this show ad nauseum for a while. How we thought we didn't know if they were going to be a good team. We didn't think they were going to be a bad team. We didn't really know what they were going to be. But we've always said a lot had to go right for them. Well, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Freddie Peralta hasn't performed. Polanco hasn't played well. He's been hurt a lot of the year. Simeon hasn't played well. He's hurt. Lindor's been hurt. Luis Robert's been hurt again. What else is new?
Right.
It felt like they were outside of Bo Bichette, who I don't think any of us, after coming off of the postseason in the World Series that he did, and the year he had before he got hurt in the playoffs, I don't think any of us would have sat here and expected that bad of a start for Bo Bichette. We thought Bo Bichette was the best piece the Mets brought in. But it just felt like they were banking on too many they were trying to go with too many projects. Like Luis Robert had to do this to succeed. Marcus Simeon had to do this to bounce back. It felt like there was too many reclamation projects in this team going into the season. And even the rotation outside of Peralta, there were question marks. Nolan McLean has not pitched consistent this year. He's had some really good starts, then there's been starts where he hasn't looked good at all. And the rest of them, Manaea for some reason couldn't even start the season in the rotation. He started in the bullpen.
Yeah.
And it's just felt like all year that it's just there's been whatever could go wrong has gone wrong. And I just don't believe they replaced any of those players with good enough replacements. I don't think they definitely haven't replaced Edwin Diaz. We already know that.
Right.
Weaver's been pitching pretty well as of late. He's got a decent scoreless streak going, but Devin Williams is still up and down, as per usual. Again, another Milwaukee Brewer that got traded that went wrong.
But again, where did he get traded to? He got traded from Milwaukee to the Yankees. Another guy that, like I said, I don't think can handle the pressure of a big market media, because when things are going bad in a city like Milwaukee, there's not too many people outside the city of Milwaukee that realize you're having a bad year. So in a way, it kind of stays behind closed doors. When you're having a bad city in New York, every Tom, Dick, and Harry knows about it the next morning.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And I think that does take a toll on a lot of players that aren't used to it, because Devin Williams had his issues with Milwaukee before he got traded. But unless you follow the NL Central or unless you're in Milwaukee, not too many people realize how bad he was struggling. They just kind of looked at his ERA, they looked at the strikeouts, they looked at the saves, and like, oh, he's having a solid year. He's probably just going through a slump right now, without the kind of looking at all the underlying numbers versus New York. If that guy picked the booger the wrong way, New York would put it on the front page of the New York Times.
Yeah, no. I agree. There are definitely that the one sport where the market you play in could affect your play is baseball. And you're right. Going from Milwaukee, where again, not that they don't hold, you don't get, it's not like you don't get held accountable, but again, it's not New York. New York is, and in my area, like I said, I'm literally the same amount of time drive from New York as I am to Philadelphia. So I get to listen to all the nut job radio hosts in each city. You think Philadelphia's bad? Go make one bad pitch in a playoff game in New York. You won't live it down for 10 years.
No, but I think like ultimately, I think the biggest reason for the Mets struggles this year and even kind of going on last year is getting rid of Pete Alonso and doing next to nothing to replace him. Like
Yeah.
I get that Escobar had a good postseason for Seattle last year. Not Escobar, Polanco. Was it
Yeah.
Escobar they got? Or Polanco?
No, it's Polanco. Polanco, you're
Yeah.
right.
I get that Polanco had a great postseason for Seattle last year. Like he played himself into the contract he got based on the playoffs that he had last year with Seattle. But he's never been a 35, 40 homer, 100 RBI hitter. So,
No.
regardless of what you feel about Pete Alonso, his average was terrible. He was a
Oh,
liability on defense, which is why they moved him to DH kind of the second half of the year. If you're going to move on from the heart and soul of your team, who's been with that organization since the day he was drafted, who was basically your biggest power threat outside of Juan Soto, if you're really going to move on from that guy, you need to replace him with somebody that can at least give you similar production.
yeah, and it almost felt like they tried to replace him with like 4 or 5 players,
Yeah.
and it didn't work.
No, and I think that if the Mets could have a do-over, which I think they really would want to do over, I'm not going to necessarily say they would get Pete Alonso because I think that ship sailed. I think that relationship was kind of tarnished when you look at the last two off seasons, kind of how the Mets handled his contract situation.
Yeah.
But if the Mets could have a do-over, I really could see them making a bigger effort to try to get a guy like Josh Naylor, who he might not be a 40 homer, 100 RBI guy, but at least Josh Naylor is going to hit 290, 300 every year and give you 25 and 80, which 25 and 80 is a lot better than what Polanco's going to give you.
Yeah, or maybe, if we go back 2 off seasons ago, maybe make a bigger bid for Christian Walker, who,
Yep.
is still up. Here's one thing. He's probably not as much of the power hitter that Pete is, but he's still going to give you 25 to 30, and we know what he can do with his glove at first base.
There's other guys you could also throw in there. You could throw in Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins was a free agent this year that signed for next to nothing with, I even forget what team he's on now, Cleveland. He signed a 1 year, $2.5 million deal with Cleveland.
And it was a minor league deal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Mets would have been better off giving Rhys Hoskins a 1 year deal and basically saying you're our everyday first baseman until you prove otherwise. And even if he's not the Rhys Hoskins that he was when you had him in Philadelphia, he's still going to get you 20 home runs on every season. He still
Boy, City
crushes.
easily.
He still crushes left-handed pitching. So even if you want to see, that's what they could have did too. They could have did the Polanco Hoskins platoon because Polanco's better against righties and Hoskins is better against lefties. Platoon them the first half of the year, and then once you get to the All-Star break, if you're still in the playoff hunt at that point, that's when you make the decision to move on and be like, you know what, Hoskins, you're our guy going forward.
All right, so real quickly, let me catch up on these. So, Fighting Philly said the LOL Mets are back. Yeah, they pretty much are. He also said Pete Alonso is the one that ruined Devin Williams. Yes, he did. They also lowballed Pete badly. Yes, they did. George, hold on a second. There's a reason Pete Alonso was becoming a one-dimensional as a DH. But again, we're not coming on here and knocking Pete Alonso for his defensive insufficiencies. I've seen more. Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I'll go on here right now. How about the guy they paid almost 800 million to? I have never seen an outfielder play this poorly.
No, I haven't either. And
He just
you
allowed
look
a,
at
he just allowed a little league home run on Toronto.
you look at what Pete Alonso's even doing in Baltimore right now. He's hitting, I think, a 236, which that's obviously not good, but it's slightly above where he's been the last couple of years in New York. I think he's got 19 home runs, which is more production than what Polanco's given you. Pete Alonso also has 64 RBIs. That's literally the production that this lineup needed with Juan Soto in the middle. You needed him and Alonso, because not only does that give you a 1-2 punch that protects not only Soto, but it also protects Alonso, because you can put Bo Bichette in front of either one of them. But it's a lefty-righty 1-2 punch. So you can't even have a manager try to mix and match late in the game and be like, well, I'm going to throw a lefty reliever here to face these two guys because one of them is a right-hander. So that if you decide you want to go with a righty, one of them's a lefty.
All right, so yeah, let's just look at that real quick. Pete Alonso so far in 87 games this year, 249, 19 homers, 59 runs batted in. Let's go over to the Mets now.
How about you take all the Mets? How about you take the Mets first baseman and combine it? Because you've had Mark Vientos play some first base, you've had Polanco play some first base, and I think they've had one other guy as well. All three of those guys combined, I don't even think come close to what Alonso's done.
Well, all right. Well, let's look at Polanco. 14 games, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 179. Currently on the 60-day IL with an Achilles injury.
So he's done for the year.
Mark Vientos, 70 games, 209, 10 home runs, 33 runs batted in. Eric Wagaman, 17 games, 192, 2 home runs, 4 runs batted in. And then we go to Jarrett Young, who's played 41 games, 6 home runs, 14 RBIs, 234.
So basically, you have four guys who have a combined batting average of about 220. And those four guys combined have what? 15 home runs and 45 RBIs?
And, just for S&Gs, Luis Robert, 24 games, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 224, 60-day IL with a back injury.
Yep.
And, of course, Marcus Semien.
Tell me how that's Mendoza's fault.
Yeah, like, the Mets put together one of the most flawed rosters I think I've ever seen. I thought the pitching was solid. I thought Peralta, McLean together, I thought that punch could have been really something special.
I thought Senga was going to be better, too. Like, I didn't think we'd get the Senga that we had when he was a rookie in the running for Rookie of the Year, but I still thought we'd get a solid number 3 in Senga that was going to come out and give you 5 to 6 innings every night and could win you 12 to 13 games. But 1 or 2 more bad starts by Senga, he's going to be out of the league with 2 years left on his contract.
I mean, they're literally using openers for him.
Yeah, because his ERA, I think, in the first inning is like a 12.97. And his season ERA is a 6.96. So, like, he gets lit up in the first inning. To the point where if you're down 4-0 after 1 inning, the Mets offense isn't good enough to make up for that.
Dustin, I got something here for you. I went to game 1 of the 2024 NLDS that the Mets and the Phillies played. Kodai Senga started that game. The first pitch of the game, Kyle Schwarber took him dead to right field for an upper deck shot, made it 1-0. The Phillies did not score another run and only had 2 more base runners on him the entire game. This past weekend, the Phillies hung him for 6. That's the first time I've seen the Phillies hit Kodai Senga in his entire Major League career.
It's whatever, because he had, I think, the shoulder injury is what he had last year.
Something like that,
It wasn't an elbow, it was a shoulder, I believe. And he ended up making some mechanical changes because he was out for so long. I think a lot of the mechanical changes he's made has actually hurt him as opposed to actually have gotten him better.
Yeah, and again, Senga's another one of those pitchers that we thought were going to be another international star to come over, and he hasn't been so far. Fighting Philly, I'm sorry, I know. I don't like bringing up the 2024 NLDS either. It's better than last year's. At least it was somewhat entertaining for like 2 games. But no, yeah, this was a Mets team they were flawed from the start. They haven't, again, for a team that wants to act like they are right up there with the big budget spending of the Dodgers and the Yankees, they really have no issue with Pete Alonso leaving, Edwin Diaz leaving, and not, again, in certain situations, quantity isn't quality. You lose Edwin Diaz and you attempt to replace him with two rejected relievers that the Yankees didn't even want back. And Weaver's been fine, but Devin Williams is just once again just getting blown up over there in Queens. The entire thing's a mess.
And that leaves you also to question how safe David Stearns is going to be after this year as well. Because for a guy that was always seen as one of the best general managers in the game for 8 years, he's put this team together in 2 years, and they look like trash.
Yeah, I think Stearns is going to be under major fire after this season's over because this whole thing's been a mess. Because bullpen, poorly constructed, lineup, absolute disaster. And not much of a future to look ahead to because you ain't got much. And now, I've been trying to avoid having this conversation. But since we're at this point where, Mendoza's been fired and because of players not performing well, and I wouldn't say as a hitter he hasn't performed well, but we may need to start having a very uncomfortable conversation about Juan Soto.
Now that you brought up Juan Soto, I might be swapping out one of my players on my dud list because I'm going to kind of compare him to Juan Soto right now, but I'm not going to give his name away until we get to the dud topic of the show. But Juan Soto is another one of those guys that when he plays up to his ability, he is a $45 to $50 million a year player. A 26-year-old who might be 27 years old now that was going to consistently hit 290, consistently hit 40 home runs, consistently drive in 100, take 100 to 120 walks per season, walk more times than he strikes out. Yes, the defensive liabilities are always going to be there, but you can always move him to DH if that's the biggest issue. But for Juan Soto to be at his best, and you can look back at when he was with the Padres, when he was with the Yankees, when he was with the Nationals, and when he started his career with the Mets. For Juan Soto to be at his best, he needs protection either in front of him or behind him. You don't give this man protection, he is a slightly above average outfielder that realistically should be getting paid $20 million a year as opposed to $50 million.
Which, again, this is a guy that's getting paid to be in the same class as Shohei Ohtani.
Yep.
That is what he is getting paid for. He is being paid to be that type of superstar level player. And here's the reason I said it. Now, Juan Soto actually this year as a hitter, batting 298, 17, almost 50 RBIs. That's not bad. His production is not where I'm at with this, but my point here is take out the Nationals because by the time he left Washington, they were kind of already in a disaster mode.
Right.
Harper had left a couple years prior. Yes, they won the World Series. Awesome. But then after that, look what happened. Rendon left and Strasburg got hurt. Scherzer and Trey Turner were out of there. They started dealing off everybody. So take them out. He goes to the Padres, and they're a playoff team.
Yep.
He gets traded to the Yankees. The Padres are still a playoff team.
And the Yankees are a playoff team once they got him.
Yes, and guess what? They're still a playoff team without him. The Mets get him. The Mets should have, like I said, coming off that 2024 team when you had Lindor and Alonso and Nimmo and still a really good roster, that should have been the piece right there. That's Saquon Barkley to the Eagles in 2024. That one missing piece. Now, granted, the Eagles had a lot of other things go their way that year, but you get my point. That's the one piece that should have put them in the spotlight of this is it. This is Ohtani to the Dodgers. We're going back to the World Series, and this time we're taking it. and now they're going to miss the playoffs 2 straight years.
I mean, they're not only going to miss the playoffs this year, they're going to be mathematically eliminated by August. Like, at least last year when they missed the playoffs, they were still in that playoff race until, the last 5 days of the regular season? Like, they were never really out of that playoff race until the very end last year. They're going to be out of it by second week of August this year.
So that's where I put the question. How much of a needle mover really is Juan Soto? Because I get your point of saying he needs protection, which, again, they let his protection go to Baltimore. But when you're making that money, you're not supposed to need protection. You're supposed to be the guy when everyone else is having a day, you're still doing your thing.
I mean, I can't say he's not a needle mover because he is. But you'll know. I'm not going to talk about him after this segment too much because when we get to my duds category, I'm gonna just lash out on somebody completely hardcore when we get to that topic. But he is a needle mover if he goes to the right situation. When the Mets brought him in, it was the right situation because the Mets were looking for that superstar caliber player. They had a great player in Pete Alonso, but no one's going to sit here and say Pete Alonso is a superstar. Is he a great player? Most definitely. But he's not like a superstar that all these teams are lining up for to be like, he's going to be my franchise player for the next 15, 20 years, and I got to give him $500 million. Pete Alonso was never going to get that. The Mets needed a guy like that. They went after Juan Soto, but for Juan Soto to be at his best, he needs his Robin to be his Batman, which is
Yeah.
Guess what? That's what Pete Alonso was.
George is wondering, are you backing up Bonilla's Brinks truck right now?
No, Bonilla doesn't have a Brinks truck anymore. He just gets a stinking carrier pigeon drop off his $2.5 million check.
But no, to kind of like,
how nice would that be for you? How nice would that be for you, Sam? Like, you're a high up CEO at Wawa, for example, and you retire, and all of a sudden you retire, and Wawa's like, you know what? We're gonna just give you $700,000 a year for the next 30 years. It's gonna come to your house on this day, on this month, every year for the next 30 years.
I could not be so lucky, but damn it, that'd be sweet.
Like, how happy do you think Bobby Bonilla is waking up every July 1st and being like, oh, bank statement's going up $2.5 million today. What should I buy today?
I just like the first comment of the show. The LOL Mets are back, and they're back in a big way. It's just the whole thing is just a giant freaking. This whole thing is a mess. The Mets are a mess, and once again, I don't know how much of this you can really put on Mendoza because. Again, the guy literally took this team to the NLCS not even 2 years ago, and that was with a roster that was somewhat competent, like consistent.
Right?
This lineup, and even and now they go in and they dismantle that entire team. That I think if you would have gave them another year to get some chemistry down, they could have went back, but. And maybe you could have made the move for Peralta this year with McClain, and you still had a decent rotation, but you have a lineup that has Nimmo and Alonso and Lindor and Soto, and maybe that would scare the life out of some teams. And maybe you still can add a Bo Bichette. Maybe that lineup could have done some damage, but no, you chose to get rid of half of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, the biggest issue I have with it is, like I said, Mendoza fell victim to poor roster construction this year. And the fact that he had to take the bullet for a roster that is full of so many You know what these players are? These are the players that you heard the A scouts complaining about in the war room in Moneyball.
Right. And the
Yeah,
funny thing is,
right.
I think Soto's going to be Bobby Bonilla 2.0, where in 3, maybe 4 years, the Mets are just going to cut bait with him, and then they're going to be like, you know what? We still owe you $400 million of your $720 million contract. How's $20 million a year for the next 20 years signing him? They'll just start paying him out like they had Bonilla.
Justin, you are aware that Bonilla still has 9 more years of that payment, right?
Yeah.
So now they're going to do it and pay.
They're not going to have a choice. Like, if they don't do something that will drastically change this franchise's fortune, whether it's obviously this guy's never going to manage again, but whether it's hire a guy like Joe Torre or Tony La Russa, like somebody that you know the moment he steps into that clubhouse, not only does he demand respect, but the moment he steps into that clubhouse, like the entire culture of that organization has changed in the blink of an eye. Unless the Mets can do something like that will drastically shift the culture of this team, they're not going to have a choice but to blow this team up in 2 or 3 years, and Soto's going to be at the top of the list. They're going to have to get rid of that contract. Whether that means paying him out the next 2 decades, it is what it is.
Well, I was going to say, having the Mets kind of already blown this team apart since the fact that they got rid of everybody from the team that went to the NLCS already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hold on. I'm going to pull that up really quick here. Give me 1 second. Let's go on to the good old baseball reference. We deal with them in a minute. Of course, with their damn grid. I mean, you look at that team. They had Francisco Alvarez, who's still there, by the way, most undisciplined hitter I've ever seen in my life.
And he was their top prospect.
Top of what? Yeah, the only high thing he is used to is high fastballs at his eyelids. But Pete Alonso, gone. Jeff McNeil, gone. Lindor, still there. Vientos, still there. Nimmo, gone. Harrison Bader, gone. Starling Marte, gone. They had JD Martinez in 2020. Wait, JD Martinez was on that team in 2024?
Yeah, he was the midseason trade.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about that. Jose Iglesias.
Here's the thing about those names that you just listed. Take Francisco Alvarez out of the mix, who was 25, I think, maybe 26. Take Mark Vientos out of the mix, who is, I believe, 27 now. Take Lindor out, who's 32 or 33 now, just because he's on that long-term deal. Pete Alonso's 31. Jeff McNeil's 35. Brandon Nimmo's 31 or 32. Harrison Bader's 34. Starling Marte is 38. And JD Martinez would be 41 if he was still playing.
Yeah.
That team was aging. I think 2024 was their championship window, and once they didn't get it, was because half that team was already getting to the point where you couldn't pay them the kind of money they were making because of their age.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a makeshift rotation. I mean, Luis Severino went 11-7, Sean Manaea went 12-6, Jose Quintana went 10-10, David Peterson was 10-3, and then they had Tyler McGill at the back end of their rotation.
And again, how many of those guys right now are at least 35 years old?
Severino right now is 32. Going off of this, Manaea is now 34. Quintana's 37. Yeah, that team literally had like that one magic 1 year window to get this right.
Yeah, you had a group of players, whether it was Vientos and Alvarez, who were the prospects, whether it was the free agent deals you made with Lindor, guys that played together for 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. They had the chemistry. They knew everything about each other. They knew what buttons they had to push to make each other play better. They knew what buttons they had to push to bring out the best in the player next to them. Everything came together for them so perfectly in that 1 year that once they did not accomplish what they set to accomplish that year, I think deep down inside, whether they want to admit it or not, I think they knew that the chemistry they had that year, they were never going to get again. So why try to force an issue that's just not going to be there?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, I can use the Cubs for an example when they blew their team up in 2021. Like you won the World Series in 2016. You made 3 straight National League Championship series in 15, 16, and 17. You got back to the playoffs in 2018 and lost in the wild card game. You missed the playoffs in 2019, and then you made it in the COVID shortened 2020 season only to lose to the Marlins. That 7 year window, that roster was basically the same exact roster, minus a couple additions, like when they traded for Nicholas Castellanos and when they traded for Jose Quintana to replace some of the guys that left kind of in that process. But when the Cubs kind of phased out as quick as they did, and they missed the playoffs in 2019, and then they got swept by the Marlins in 2020, and then they went from being, I think it was 8 games above 500 on June 27th to being 3 games under 500 at the All-Star break, basically losing 15 of 18 games heading into the All-Star break. I think the Cubs basically just got to the point where it's like, we did what we could do with this group. We're at 7 years with this group. We're not going to be able to rekindle that magic season that we had 7 years ago. So it's time that we blow it up now before we put ourselves even in a worse situation going forward.
I mean, another good one's the Phillies back when they had Rollins, Utley, and Howard. I mean, they had that great 5 year run, won the World Series, and then it went down every year. They lost in the NLCS in 2010. They lost in the Division Series in 2011. Of course, that's where Ryan Howard tore his Achilles.
Yep.
And then, of course, 2012, they made a run. They finished it right at 500, and then they tried to continue to run it back with Rollins, Utley, and Howard as the core. And as they got older, the team got worse. They couldn't put it together again, and that was the ultimate downfall of that run.
Like I know managers and general managers a lot of times are stubborn just because they don't want to admit when, I'm not going to say they don't want to admit when something fails, but they don't want to admit when something isn't working. So if you have a 3 to 5 year window with a ton of success with the same group of players throughout the duration of that 5 year run, the moment you kind of hit like that little 2 or 3 year slide where you're winning less games, you're not advancing as far into the playoffs, and your season's getting shorter and shorter each year. I think a lot of times these general managers and these managers try to make excuses why they're coming up short, as opposed to just looking everything head on and basically being, you're not a 28-year-old anymore. You're 33 going on 34. You don't throw 95 miles an hour anymore. You throw 91, 92. Like, this is the position we're in. We have to face the facts and face the reality that we're not the same team we were 5 years ago when we put this team together. It's time to start figuring out who belongs on this team now and who we need to move on from and basically say thank you for your service, but we need to focus on the future, and you're not part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. And first of all, Fighting Philly said that the Mets team was a retirement home. Of course, he also made an AARP joke. And Fighting Philly's also mad at me because I brought up 2011. Look, I can't help but bring it up, okay? Broke my heart. It broke my heart though because I lost a freaking iPod Touch because of that 2011 Cardinals team. Actually,
They do make
so
they do
Ryan
make
Howard.
they do make anger management classes.
Yeah, well, I got an anger management from my mother that night, so I don't need it. I didn't need anger management. I needed my mother not to kill me. Hey, Fighting Philly, you're spot on. Every player has a shelf life, and when it doesn't matter who they are, but eventually your bat speed declines, your legs don't run as fast as they used to, and every player does have a shelf life.
I'm not going to say players have a shelf life just because injuries can kind of determine when your shelf life is. So I can't necessarily say that every player has a shelf life. What I will say, though, is there's a reason why Father Time is undefeated. And Father Time gets to people at different times. It can get to you 20 years into the league. It can get to you 8 years into the league. It can get to you 12 years into the league. But the moment that Father Time hits you, you can't fight the fact that your playing days are done because people know when Father Time hits you.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it's hard to watch those players when they try to beat Father Time.
Yeah. Like right now, and this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I'm going to say the one guy this year that's trying to beat Father Time is Justin Verlander, who we kind of touched on last week.
Yeah.
Father Time has grabbed Justin Verlander by the nuts and said, "You're not pitching anymore." And Verlander's trying to tell Father Time, like, "No, I signed this contract. Like, I'm going to go out here and do it." Yeah, Father Time has caught Justin Verlander hard, and it's not going to let him go.
No. And it's a shame because again, like you said, Verlander, first ballot Hall of Famer, and I really would have liked to have seen at least somewhat of a healthy last season in Detroit. That would have been something really cool to see. But again, with the injuries that he's dealing with, the hip inflammation, now the hamstring injury, it
Right.
doesn't look like it's going to come into fruition.
Nope. I mean, Max Scherzer last year I thought was hitting Father Time. Granted, I think he still has hit Father Time, but I think Scherzer's still young enough yet where he's at least been able to fight it off a little bit longer and at least kind of been like, okay, I'll let you hang on to me for a little bit, but you're still not strong enough to pull me back yet.
Yeah. But yeah, well, you know who does have a shelf life? Managers. You lose 5 games in a row one time, and we'll be calling for your job by the end of the week.
Right. And then you have
All right.
some cases where managers have too long of a shelf life, like when the Angels hung on to Mike Scioscia for as long as they
Oh
hung on
my.
to him just because he won a World Series in 2002. But guess what? After
Oh
you won
my.
that World Series in 2002, you made the playoffs twice in 12 years, and you had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on the same team for 7 of those 12 years.
It's the Mike Tomlin effect.
Like you had one, I mean, okay, he had a couple of good seasons. Like he had another season where they went like 101 and 61 in I think 2011, which was the year before Mike Trout was in the organization, and they got eliminated in the ALCS this year. So we had two basically good teams where he could have done something with. Other than that, he was consistently winning 84 games every year. If they got into the playoffs, they were a wild card, they'd be swept, or they missed the playoffs by 1 or 2 games. He rode that World Series championship for a decade too long.
Yeah. And that's the Mike Tomlin Doc Rivers effect. Doc Rivers won the NBA Finals in '08, hasn't accomplished crap since, still hangs on to it and gets coaching jobs.
He gets coaching jobs because, regardless of his success in the playoffs, and he is one of the worst coaches in the playoffs because all you got to do is look at all the 3-1 series bleeds that he's lost.
You
But
don't say.
just on sheer regular season winning percentage, if you look at the amount of games he's coached, the amount of wins he's had, and everything, just on sheer regular season winning percentage alone, he's a top 12 coach in NBA history when it comes to regular season winning percentage. That's why he keeps getting jobs because they know when you bring him in, he's going to get you into the playoffs. Now, what he does with your team once you get there is a different question, but you're pretty much guaranteed to win at least 50 games every single year that you bring Doc Rivers in.
I won't deny or agree with any of that.
Because you know I'm right, because he does that every time. Besides besides last year in Milwaukee when he had to deal with the Giannis drama and Giannis being hurt, and I think the Bucks pretty much just packed it in and said we're not going anywhere this year, we're just going to tank. Everywhere Doc Rivers has been, whether it's Orlando, whether it's Boston, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's Philly, can't think of anywhere else he's been, he gets you 50 wins guaranteed every year.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And that's why he keeps getting coaching jobs. The thing with Mike Scioscia is, had he gotten the Angels 90 plus wins consistently during his entire tenure, I can make the argument that yes, he should be there as long as he was there because he's consistently winning you 90 games. You're consistently making the playoffs. It's just a matter of you can't finish the job when you get there. He only had what 3 seasons out of his 15 years as manager where he won 90 games. Everything else was 84, 85 wins, and chances are that wasn't enough to make the playoffs. He wasn't
Yeah,
that
pretty
good.
much. No. No, yeah, those Angels teams are very up and down. Like you said, one year being 90 plus, look pretty solid, win the West. Next thing it's 80 something, wild card. It
And
usually
I'm gonna,
results in being bounced. It usually results in being bounced by the Red Sox.
yeah, and I know I'm gonna sound like a racist when I say this, but I'm not a racist. Look at the team that won the World Series and how many white guys were on that team. You had David Eckstein, Darren Erstad, you had a young John Lackey, you had Troy Percival.
Tim
Like
Salmons was on the team.
none of those guys would even be. I get Percival because Percival was a good closer, but Darren Erstad and David Eckstein would barely make the cut as a bench player in today's Major League Baseball world, especially David Eckstein because he is 5'5".
Hey! Don't disrespect David Eckstein like that.
I'm just saying he's 5'5". He was not like when you look at how shortstops are built nowadays. Like
Fair. That's fair.
that group of guys, whether it was Darren Erstad, David Eckstein, whether it was like I said, a young John Lackey, Troy Percival, I believe they had. I can't think of him. He was like another like good second baseman at the time. They would be role players at best in today's Major League Baseball world. He basically got so much more than anyone expected him to get out of those players that it was hard for him ever to get that kind of production ever again because once they had that success and when they kind of started to fail after that, that's when they started to spend the big money on Vladimir Guerrero, on Mike Trout, on all these other guys because they're like, we're not getting the production from the young guys anymore. Now we need to spend.
Vlad Guerrero with the Angels. Vlad Guerrero with the Angels. I remember those days. Fighting Philly thinks we're trying to kill him because now we brought up Doc Rivers. Look, my co-host said it. I didn't say nothing. I don't want to remember Doc Rivers. I don't want to remember those times.
Can I wait? Can I raise you Brant Brown and trust the process?
You know what? Yeah, you can. I'd rather do a Brett Brown, actually.
Where you knew you were going to suck for 6 years and eventually things would happen?
No. And see, that is what sucked about that. And we'll dive into our CBA stuff in a second. Let me just say this. Brett Brown was another coach that he should never have been relied on to lead that team into the playoffs because you knew with Brett Brown, he was the coach for the rebuild, and you knew there was going to be a cap on the expectations with him, and they waited too long. And then they went to Doc Rivers, and then everything.
You know why I brought him up, don't you?
Do I want to know why?
Because Ben Simmons is about to sign with the Miami Heat. He's trying to make a comeback.
If Ben Simmons will be back in the NBA, the Flyers are rumored to be talking to Claude Giroux. Kawhi Leonard's back in Toronto. LeBron possibly could go back to Cleveland. It's 2019 in my head all over again.
Good times
What's
at
up,
Ridgemont
Orlando?
High. Good times at Ridgemont High. That's all I got to say.
I'm not having a good time talking all this depressing Philly stuff. Let's move on. All right, Dustin. So we got some new CBA negotiations that came out, of course, the day after our show last week. Here's the latest.
That's because they listen to us first. They wait until we give our opinions, and they say, "Well, we got to change things up because they didn't like what we said the first time."
Correction, we haven't liked anything they said the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth time.
Yeah, that's why they keep waiting until after our show is done. So now watch. We're going to talk about it now. And at some point tomorrow, you're going to see another proposal come through.
Orlando, you picked a great time to enter the chat. We got some interesting free agency things I want to hear your opinion on. So here is the latest from Major League Baseball and the CBA. The league is proposing Hold on real quick. God damn it. All right. The league is proposing a max contract length of 5 years for free agent players switching teams, 6 years to retain their own players. No deferred contracts. Qualifying offer is completely gone. Also, 5 years to free agency for players 30 years or older. So basically, the longest contract a free agent could sign with a new team is 5 years, with a max total projected value of the contract being $202 million. The longest contract a free agent could sign with the team they are currently with is 6 years, with a
Mhm.
max contract total projected of $265 million. The
Yeah.
longest any player can be signed to any point under a single contract extension is for 12 years, max $500 million value. So you can sign a 12-year extension if you're in your first year in the majors, but if you're in your say third year in the majors, you can sign for a max length of only 9 years.
Yep.
So Dustin, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. The two things I will say that I'm 100% for in this proposal is getting rid of the qualifying offers, just because qualifying offers are basically, in my opinion, a slap in the face to the player that is being offered the qualifying offer, because you're essentially telling that player, we still have control over you for 1 year, but just an FYI, we're not even going to bother to make a run at you next year, so we're just going to give you the qualifying offer now so we can keep you. And then all of a sudden, if that player gets hurt, then they probably don't get the cash in that big free agent check the next offseason. So I'm fine with getting rid of the qualifying offer for sure.
Yeah.
The whole no deferred contracts, sign me up and I will sign the deal for you if that's part of it.
Yes, we have voiced our opinions on this since starting hitting home back in the end of the winter. I hate deferred money. And I actually tried to play devil's advocate. I said, okay, you know what? Deferred, because like I said, I do not agree with the teams that say, oh, well, the Dodgers are paying all these free agents. You, instead of pocketing your revenue every year, you can sign these free agents too. I disagree with that point by the owners. But what I did agree with them is not every team can pay Shohei Ohtani $70 million a year, but defer $68 million per year until when he's no longer on the
Yeah.
active roster. That is impossible for every team in Major League Baseball to do. You cannot do that. I even said, okay, let's put a cap on it. Say you can only put like 5 to 10% of the money per year deferred. Let's put a cap
Yep.
on it. Instead of
Yep.
90% of it, let's cap it at a lower percent. The owners are done with deferred money. And personally, I'm with you now. I'm done with it. I don't like it. I think
And
it's
what I
stupid.
told you, what, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, like what the whole purpose of the deferred contracts were. It wasn't to be abused the way it's being abused now. It was basically kind of set up for, I'm not going to say it was set up for the small market teams like Tampa Bay, Milwaukee, and Pittsburgh, but it was more so set up for the teams that make the playoffs, like Cleveland Guardians and the Houston Astros before they started spending the money they were spending. It was kind of those mid-market teams like that are consistently making the playoffs with the financial limitations that they have. It allows them to spend the kind of money the big market teams spend, but it still allowed them a portion of that contract to be kind of deferred. And at that point, that deferred contract is essentially used as a signing bonus, just in reverse order. Instead of paying the signing bonus up front, it gets paid to you at the back end of the contract, which is why it was deferred. But for how much the Dodgers have abused that system the last couple of years, I think Major League Baseball just got fed up with it. And they're basically like, this system was always here. Like, we created this system to help teams benefit from it. You have just ruined the system for everybody because of how you abused it. So now, guess what? Nobody's going to be able to use that system anymore.
And now let's get to the other big important part of those negotiations. And I think that's to what Orlando said about him really liking. I think this is the part that he really enjoyed hearing was the contract length. So if you are a free agent and you are going to decide to stay with your current team, you can get an additional year. You could sign for 6 years and stay with your team. Or if you go from one team to another, you can max out at 5 years. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole max contract value. Like that's where how much you could sign for. I'm already dealing with the NBA offseason now. I don't need to deal with it in Major League Baseball just yet. So I'm not going to give my thoughts on the money. I don't really care about that. I'm just talking about the year length. And
Yep.
for somebody whose team started this double digit contract crap, which I will never come on here and say that I dislike Bryce Harper. He is my second favorite Philly all time, not named Chase Utley. And the reason I love Bryce Harper so much is because he reminds me of Chase Utley, and he
Right.
plays like Chase Utley. But to give these guys 10 to 13-year contracts, these are going to blow eventually. They're all going to blow up in their faces because look, Manny Machado's already started to offensively decline. We can see it.
But at least he still gives you the defense, though. So at least he's still holding up part of his contract. The one
Yes.
contract that I'm going to say has really blown up in somebody's face, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Mookie Betts. Like, the contract that the Dodgers gave Mookie Betts, I think it was, what, 13 years when they
Yeah, but you
traded
know
for
what?
him?
I'll play the devil's advocate to that as well. You say Manny still gives you the defense. Guess what? Mookie still gives you the defensive versatility.
He does, but he was signed more so to be like that leadoff hitter. He was signed to be a 40-40 guy. Like Manny Machado,
I agree.
everyone knew he was going to decline offensively at some point. He was being brought in for that defense. Mookie Betts was being brought in to be a 5-tool player, and those days are long gone. And another player, which we touched on him last week or 2 weeks ago, Rafael Devers. You want to talk about a long-term deal that's blowing up in somebody's face? Boston Red Sox are going to be giving the Giants a freaking Christmas card every single year for taking that contract from them.
We're gonna have Bobby Bonilla and Rafael Devers Day.
Like the Red Sox were
The
as bad as
Giants.
they've played this year and as bad as the Red Sox are, the San Francisco Giants are going to be getting a Christmas card for the next 3 decades from the Red Sox for taking that contract off their hands.
Oh my God, they will. It's one of the worst possible contracts I could ever think of a team getting a
And
part of. Like it's
even though this contract wasn't nearly as long in length as the ones that I brought up, Chris Bryant and Anthony Rendon.
yeah.
Bryant was a 7-year deal, which injuries have really hampered him, so I can't necessarily blame him, and it just sucks because he had such a promising future ahead of him when you look at how he started his career. I think he would have been a 400 or maybe even a 500 home run hitter had he been able to stay healthy, because a healthy Chris Bryant in Coors Field for 8 years, you're putting up big numbers in that park.
Yeah.
But the Anthony Rendon contract, where he played 1 year, he had a decent first year with the Angels. I think he had like 27 home runs and 92 RBIs his first year with the Angels. And then after that, it was shoulder injury, shoulder injury, shoulder injury. I just don't feel like playing baseball anymore. And then he had his infamous interview, what was it, 2023, where he was in the final 2 years of his contract, and he basically came out in spring training and said, I really just don't want to be here this year because baseball is not my top priority, and it hasn't been the past 4 years.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, isn't that your job, is to play baseball? So how is a 9-year, $245 million contract not your top priority?
Orlando, you're spot on. They were not thinking about Mookie's defense when they gave him the money in the years. They are thinking about his offensive production. I agree. I'm just saying. But see, hold on. Let me backtrack this to Orlando's point. That's the problem with a decade-long contract. Like Trey Turner. Trey Turner is going to be with the Phillies till he's 38, 39 years old.
And I'm
He's
sorry because I
already a
love Trey Turner, but that contract's looking bad for you guys right now too.
man. It's year 4 of the damn thing.
Yeah, that contract is
He's
not aging well.
His batting average is already 60 points lower than last year. He won the NL batting title last year. He's batting 240. Now, in defense, he is hitting better lately. He took Paul Skeens deep tonight, which, by the way, Paul Skeens is kryptonite, the Philadelphia Phillies. We scored 14 runs off him this year. So that's
Damn.
one thing. That's number one. Number two, he's already a below average fielding shortstop, and it's going to get worse. That crap does not
Mhm.
get better. Like, that's the thing. You sign these guys for these decade-long deals, and unless they are one of those, like, unless Father Time gives up on somebody like they did with LeBron James, unless that happens, is Bryce Harper going to hit 280 with 35 and 100 at age 39? No. Is Trey Turner still going to play?
Unless you're Shohei Ohtani or Kyle Schwarber. Because Kyle Schwarber
Yeah.
can be 40 years old and the guy's still going to be slugging 45, 50 home runs. And by the time Shohei gets to be 40 years old, he may not be a pitcher anymore, but the dude's still going to hit 50 home runs a year.
Well, and with Schwarber, but that's the difference, though. Schwarber has never been given a decade-long contract. He's had options.
He
He's
kind
also
of has, but I consider Schwarber in that range just because how many people actually thought Schwarber was going to leave the Phillies this offseason?
honestly not many.
Exactly. So he had a 5-year deal with the Phillies. The 5-year deal expired. He just signed a new 5-year deal. That's essentially a decade-long contract. It's just the fact that he split it up into two portions of it.
Fair enough, but I could also make the case that Schwarber's a late bloomer because he was good in Chicago, but even you've admitted to me, who saw this coming?
That's still the deal that haunts me to this day. There are two trades. I mean, there's a lot of trades in Cubs history that I can go back and be like the one that got away, and obviously the Lou Brock deal with the Cardinals is the biggest one that stands out because of the player that Lou Brock became after you traded him. But the two biggest regrets as a Cubs fan that I have had since Jed Hoyer and this regime took over when you look at trades, Kyle Schwarber wasn't even a trade. You didn't trade him when you had the opportunity to trade him. So you let him hit free agency and he left your organization and you got nothing for him versus you traded Bryant, you traded Baez, you traded every other piece to that core and you got PCA as part of that deal and you got some of these other pieces. You could have got something for Schwarber that could be helping you right now, but you let him walk for nothing. And then the other big one that just still haunts me to this day is fucking trading Dylan Cease for Jose Quintana.
That's not a good one.
Hmm?
Real quick, Orlando, I'm going to respectfully disagree with saying just because of the DH spot, because I've seen guys get older and their bat speed is wiped out completely. Like, I'll be real. Do I think Bryce Harper is still going to be a very good player at age 39? I don't know. He's got such a violent swing. I don't know what his bat speed will look like by the time he's 38, 39 years old. We've already come into question it a little bit over the past year. Now, this year, Bryce Harper's having a really big bounce back year. He's on pace for over 30 homers. He's on pace for his first 100 RBI season since his first season in Philly. Now, granted, not all that's his fault. He's been hurt. But bat speed is something.
Right.
Kyle Schwarber's bat speed hasn't gone anywhere, and it's just going to stay the same. But it's like Trey Turner. His bat speed looks worse than when he was in Washington in LA for that 1 year. Dude went from winning batting titles. All of a sudden, he's trying to hit every ball out of the ballpark. And again, Trey Turner, is he going to be playing shortstop at age 37? No. And where's he going to play? You can't DH him. You have Kyle Schwarber. You have Bryce Harper. Like, I just don't understand why we started. And the biggest reason why this started was before Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, it was a rarity to see players in Major League Baseball 26 years old hitting the open market.
Exactly, because you always had that. You always got drafted, unless you were a high schooler. You always got drafted between the ages of 21 and 23. If you go through the standard development process of the way baseball works with all the different levels of the minor leagues, knowing that you have the 3 arbitration years after your 5-year rookie contract expires, a team theoretically has control over a player for 8 years. And if they want to utilize all 8 of those years, a 23-year-old college kid who gets drafted is not hitting free agency till they're 31.
Yeah.
And by your age 31 season, you're basically out of your prime because they say the prime years of a Major League Baseball player are between ages 27 and 33. So your best years most likely are going to be coming when you're still under your rookie contract and are just getting your standard yearly raises on the arbitration market. So when you actually hit free agency for that first time at 31 years old, you never used to be able to cash that check like you can cash it now because teams are going to make sure that you couldn't cash that check.
Exactly. So again, like there's just things to this that we haven't seen before Harper and Machado. They decided to hit that market at 26
Mm-hmm.
and they start the trend. Now Bryce is a little different. Bryce chose not to have an opt-out. Manny got an opt-out and then the Padres had to extend him again, which that's
Right.
another ludicrous thing to its own self. But like I said, I don't like the decade-long contracts because you're paying players into their late 30s and barring a father time miracle, which father time is undefeated, no player beats father time. They're
And the
not
other
going to
thing I
be the
don't and the
same.
other thing I don't like about those long-term contracts is 90 freaking percent of them come with a fucking full no trade clause. So even if you want to get rid of that deal, you can't.
Yeah. And I don't like the deals. I don't like those deals. I think they're stupid. And I think if we can get back to a 5, 6 year deal you're getting if you're going to another team, you get a 5 year deal. If you still want to stay with a team that you've been with, that you start your career with, you can get a 6 year deal. I think that's more than fair. We'll get the max salary thing. We'll talk about another day, but I think 5 to 6 years is very fair.
It is.
Orlando, 100%. I think I agree with you. This is probably Bryce Harper's most healthy season since his MVP year. And so far this year, through 87 games, he's hitting 275. OPS is over 900, 20 bombs. After his 2 tonight, 56 RBIs, and also a strikeout to walk ratio of 68 to 50.
Yep.
That's one of his best.
He's more because he's not an elite player anymore, according to Dombrowski.
Yeah, well, I thought it's just somebody in the Phillies organization is not elite anymore, and his name may be Dave Dombrowski. And I mean, even though Harper played 100, the funny thing is he played 141 games at his MVP season, so he still missed 20 games that year, but he was still amazing. He played
Right.
145 and 24, but the wrist started giving him issues. Same thing with last year. The wrist really gave him an issue, and he is on pace for a way better year this year than he was last year. Last year
Yeah.
he only had 27 home runs. He'll probably exceed that this year. Last year he only had 75 runs batted in. Now he's got 56. He'll definitely exceed that as long
Yep.
as he stays healthy. But yeah, no, and like I said, I love Bryce Harper. I don't like the decade long contracts. I don't, and unfortunately, and I now here's another thing. I wonder if they would put him. Do
Bless you.
you think there's a possibility of capping him differently for hitters compared to pitchers?
See, that's the thing. I'm still fine with giving a player a decade-long contract as long as there are option years tied into it where if they're not performing 6 years into the deal, you can either A, cut loose and be done, or restructure the deal to save you money. When it comes to pitchers, I would not be giving a pitcher more than a 5-year deal. For how many arm injuries we see now, how many Tommy Johns we see, and just all the different injuries now you see because of the velocity side of things, I would not be giving a pitcher more than 5 years ever on a contract. I don't care how
I
old they are
mean,
and how good they are. Same with Jacob
I
Mizorowski.
agree.
When Jacob Mizorowski hits free agency, same with Paul Skeens, they're going to have countless 10 to 12-year contracts thrown at their feet with these organizations begging them to sign that deal. As good as Skeens is, as good as Mazeroski is, I would not be giving them more than a 5-year deal because it's only a matter of time before that arm falls off.
Yeah, same thing, and the same thing's going to go with Tarek Skubal once this whole thing is over. When this whole CBA thing is over and we have a season and we get free agency going, eventually, whenever that is, we'll see what happens with Skubal.
Yep.
Because he's going to set the road for those guys.
Yes, he will.
But yeah, no, I wouldn't mind putting a cap on contracts being 5 to 6 years. I don't like the decade stuff. I think it's ludicrous to pay these guys into their age 38, 39 season because, again, they're not going to be the same player. Bryce Harper is 33 years old. He's having a terrific season.
No.
I don't know if he's going to do this at 39. And to say you expect it, even saying it with Shohei and Schwarber, I think it's unrealistic. DH or not.
You ready to get into some hot or not?
Oh yeah, let's get into our studs and duds for the month of June. Now, of course, for anybody that's watching that hasn't seen this segment, what we do is we take 4 players or teams or whatever or maybe a specific unit to a team, and we put them into a stud or dud list. Stud means they've had a good season. Dud means they have disappointed. Dustin, where do we want to start off tonight?
We'll go studs this time. I think we did duds first last
All right.
time.
Would you like to kick it off or would you like me to kick it off?
I want to kick it off since one of my guys I put on my list.
Go ahead.
Pete Henry Crow Armstrong is my number 1 stud for the month of June. In a time where you had the Chicago Cubs at 27-12, a team that won 20 of 23 games at one point to get to 27-12, they followed that up by winning 7 games in the month of May and fell back to 500. Here we are now, 3 weeks later, and since June 11th, the Cubs are 15-4, which is the best record in Major League Baseball. Big reason for that is Pete Crow Armstrong got moved from the middle of the batting order to the leadoff spot, and all he's done since going to the leadoff spot is hit a .347 with 12 home runs, 31 RBIs, 18 steals, and he's got 25 walks. The walks are what stands out to me because the most walks that he's ever had in a single season was 27. He had 19 walks in the month of June. So since he's moved to the leadoff spot, his approach at the plate has changed. He's a lot more patient. He's not as aggressive. And he's got a different mindset as a hitter because he knows his responsibility as the leadoff hitter is to get on base and make things happen. And even if you keep that mindset, you're still going to get your opportunities to drive in runs, which he's done.
I mean, it was a slow start for him. It's glad to see he's picked it up as of late, and they're playing some decent ball right now. All right. I'll start off my first stud for the month of June. I'm going to go down to a team that is struggling. I'm going down to Boston. My first stud for the month of June, I'm going Wilson Contreras. Now, when the Red Sox had their offseason, and, it wasn't a great offseason, Alex Bregman leaves for the Cubs in free agency and all that good stuff. And the Red Sox did make some additions this offseason. They signed Ranger Suarez. They traded for Sonny Gray. But the one move they made for a bat was getting Wilson Contreras to be their everyday first baseman. And even though the Red Sox have struggled this year, Contreras has actually enjoyed himself a very solid year. He's batting .280. He has a .374 OBP. He has an OPS of .903. He's had 18 home runs and 53 runs batted in. And he actually has provided the Cubs with some much-needed right-handed offense, even though they're 11 games under 500 still. So, that's my first one.
I put him on my dud list, and you'll know why later. And
Okay.
it
All right,
actually has
Dustin.
nothing to do with his play either. It has to do with other stuff.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. All right, Dustin. Who you got for stud number two?
Jacob Mizorowski.
Gee, I wonder why.
I mean, the guy just faced the Chicago Cubs on Friday last week and threw a 105.9 mile an hour fastball in the first inning. And they were talking to him about that after the game. And he said, on that pitch, I actually slipped on the mound. I think I can get that pitch up to 108 to 110. I'm very curious to see how fast this guy can actually throw before he gets to the point where he can't throw any harder than what he does. And being as young as he is, the Brewers are at some point are going to run into that issue where they're going to have to figure out how to pay him. But that's not something they have to worry about for another 4 years. In my opinion, as good of a season that Christopher Sanchez has had with the Phillies, Mezorowski right now should be the favorite to not only win the Cy Young in the National League, but this guy's positioning himself to actually get legitimate MVP votes this season as well.
I don't disagree. As a Phillies fan and a very big Christopher Sanchez fan, Jacob Mizorowski has been absolutely ridiculous this year. I mean, God, he freaking one hit us and struck out 15 a few weeks ago.
A home run to Seiya Suzuki Friday night, which was the first home run he gave up since April 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, how can I go against that? The guy is literally just the most ridiculous starting pitcher in baseball right now. All right. My number two stud, I'm going to stay in the NL Central, but I'm going to the St. Louis Cardinals, who are currently, yes, they are in third place, but you know what? In a year where we
Yes.
thought dead on rebuild, they're 44 and 39, and a big reason why has been the play of Jordan Walker, who, of course, has been one of their top prospects for years. Hasn't really been able to put it together at the plate throughout most of his first few years in the bigs. But this year, 288, 18 home runs, 58 runs batted in, OBP at 342, and 853 OPS. Now, he is in a little bit of a power slump. He hasn't homered. He's gone, I think, like over 15 straight games without a home run. So he's a little bit of a power slump, but still batting almost 290. Still has the 18 homers. OPS is good. OBP is good. Playing a solid right field for the Cardinals. Finally putting it together at the plate. I got Jordan Walker as my number two stud for the month of June.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. For my number three stud, on him this week as well. But he was doing. We talked about him last week, so I'm going to give the man his flowers. Byron Buxton is my number three stud for the month of June because this is the Byron Buxton that the Minnesota Twins have been waiting for since he became a part of that organization. And his play has been so strong this year that the Minnesota Twins have said everybody in our franchise is available for trade talks at the deadline, but Byron Buxton.
You know, Buxton, he has had a very strong year for the Twins. Finally healthy. That's really all it is. Finally healthy. It's been it's been a rough go of things physically for him, and it's glad to see he's finally healthy and finally producing. So it's definitely been good to see him finally healthy and just being able to put it all together. All right. I may, and I is a very strong may. I may shock you with my next one.
What you got?
Justin, answer me a question. Who was the worst team in Major League Baseball?
Rockies, I believe.
I'm going to those Rockies.
Hunter Goodman.
Yes, sir.
Give the man his flowers because that guy's ridiculous.
He is, man. Hunter Goodman's got to get some flowers. I mean, he's in 243 only, whatever. But guess what? That OPS is hanging around 850. Oh, not to mention, he leads the majors in home runs this year by a catcher after hitting number 27 today. Now, he has
Yeah,
a substantial lead over the others, but leads all catchers in baseball in home runs. I'm giving Hunter Goodman his flowers this month.
hey, just when we thought that nobody could do what Cal Raleigh did last year, Hunter Goodman's going to make a case for it.
He plays in that ballpark.
I say, as I say, he certainly plays in the ballpark for it.
All right, Dustin, let's head on to number 4. Who you got?
So my last stud for the month of June is Shohei Ohtani, but only for the pitching aspect and not for the hitting. Offensively, Shohei is still going to be Shohei when all is said and done. But when you look at the numbers that he's put up offensively this year, he is having a slightly down year offensively than what he has done in the past. But what he's doing on the mound this year is basically pitching at a historic pace because I still believe his ERA is like a 0.7 or a 0.8. This is a guy who hasn't pitched in almost 2 years since he had another Tommy John, wasn't sure if he would ever be able to pitch again, and then basically came into spring training and got with Dave Roberts and basically told Dave Roberts, this is probably my last year as a starting pitcher. Well, guess what? If this really is his last year as a starting pitcher, he is going out on top as a starter because he looks great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to be another strong candidate for the NL Cy Young. We honestly, right now, probably have one of the most loaded NL Cy Young races in recent history.
Yeah. Shohei, Sanchez, and Mazeroski are the top 3. Skeens is always going to be in there, even though he's having a down year this year. Skeens is still going to be in there.
Chris Sale's going to be in there. He's still carrying that Braves rotation. All right. And I'll finish us off here on my number 4. I'm going to, since Dustin, you went early on with your team with PCA, I'm going to my team, and I'm going to the back end of my bullpen. Johan Duran. Now, look, we get all the talk about, the Mason Millers of the world and Aroldis Chapman. Johan Duran is having a great start to the 2026 season for the Phillies. Here on July the 1st, even though we only have 15 minutes left on July 1st, 1.52 ERA, 21 for 22 in saves. Only blown save came on the road in Toronto, and he was in the midst of pitching like four straight games. So I watched the game. He was exhausted.
Yeah.
Got the 44 strikeouts and 29 and 2/3 innings, whip under 1, and honestly, just providing the Phillies with something they have not had since Brad Lidge in 2008, and that is a lockdown back end of the bullpen closer. They have 18 one-run victories this year, and you don't get that without having someone like Johan Duran in the back end of your pen.
Right.
Not to mention the guy throws a freaking splitter at 101 miles an hour.
Yeah, it sounds fun to try to hit that, don't it?
Oh, trust me, I just watched the Mets attempt to hit it. It wasn't pretty. All right, Dustin, now we got to move over to our duds. Would you like to kick us off again?
I honestly forgot who 2 of the duds are that I put, and I can't look right now because if I do that, I'm going to exit out of the show, which I don't want to do. But I do remember 2. I do remember 1, but I am going to change 1. So I'm the.
Let me see if I can pull this.
Making himself look like
Let me see if I can pull it.
A 4-year, $240 million contract for a guy that only played 110 games last year, had the worst second half of his career last year. Everyone made the argument, oh, he only struggled because he was hurt. I think it was a little bit more than him struggling because he was hurt, because the first half of this season, not only does Kyle Tucker look lost, but it looks like he forgot how to hit a baseball consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Kyle Tucker's definitely been a huge disappointment out in LA. But again, this is what you get when the Dodgers just want to pay everybody these big, ridiculous contracts. Somebody eventually is not going to pan out to it. And, I think their hope was, putting him in a lineup with Betts and Freeman and Otani. It's like, oh, well, now he doesn't have to be the guy, the second guy, or even the third guy. But, yikes. That at bat you sent me earlier, that was atrocious.
For a guy that's supposed to have such a good knowledge of the strike zone, it looks like he has no idea what a strike is right now.
You got that right.
And I
All
think the
right.
biggest
What?
the biggest thing that I think's affected him is the ABS, because how many times early in his career did he benefit from a borderline call going his way because you couldn't challenge that pitch?
A lot.
Look at now. These borderline pitches that are being called strikes, he challenges and loses the challenge. The borderline pitches that are being called balls, the catcher challenges and he's losing the challenge. So, like, all the things that helped him become such a good hitter early in his career are now completely exposing the kind of hitter he is, because that just goes to show you how much he benefited from these borderline calls before you could actually challenge them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And again, I still like we always said, we never knew after what we saw from his year in Chicago. We didn't know what kind of player Kyle Tucker really was. Is he the guy or is he just a guy?
Just a guy.
Pretty much. All right. Unfortunately, as much as I love Johan Duran, my first dud, I'm going back to my bullpen, and I'm going with Jose Alvarado. The Phillies, they brought in Brad Keller, and Keller has had a weird year. He's allowed a lot of base runners, but he has still had some moments where he's been able to be solid in the back end of our pen. Orion Kirkering has pitched really well. When the Phillies traded Matt Strom, the confidence level was that Jose Alvarado was still here as your high leverage left handed reliever. Oh my God, he has been awful. ERA is at 5.7. I'm so happy. He actually got it under 6 before this show. His whip is close to 2 at 1.63. I know it doesn't sound like it's close, but that's a lot closer than you want to. Command, not what it was a couple of years ago. Walking a lot of batters, just not being the high leverage lefty reliever the Phillies expected him to be. And thank God I have Johan Duran, because if not, my bullpen would be an absolute disaster.
Especially with Keller hurt.
Yeah, well, luckily, I believe he's supposed to hit up a rehab game this at the end of this week. So hopefully, I should be getting
He'll
him
be back.
back
He'll be
soon.
back. He'll be back after the All Star break. They'll hold him out until after that.
Yeah, I mean we're already close to it, so
Yeah.
why risk anything?
So my second dud of the month is going to be Wilson Contreras, and this has
Please do
nothing to
tell.
do. This has nothing to do with his production, because production wise, he's having probably one of the better seasons he's had in the past 3 or 4 seasons. It's his stupid attitude and trying to get in a fight every time something doesn't go his way. He's making himself look like a team and clubhouse cancer because of the way he's behaving on the field.
Yeah, he was like that in St. Louis too.
Not to this degree.
Yeah,
Like, he is literally trying to start a fight with everybody. He went after a fan on freaking Twitter last night. And now the fan
note
is
to
pressing.
self.
Now the fan is pressing charges.
Note to self: if you're a professional athlete, we're here to help you. Deactivate social media when you're in season.
Like like it was like a Boston Red Sox beat writer, and he basically was just kind of calling out Wilson Contreras and his kind of behavior too, saying, "You're supposed to be a 34-year-old veteran leading these young guys, and you're the one that's acting like an immature high school kid who's trying to fit in at a college level." And then Wilson Contreras's response was, "How about you meet me in the parking lot after the game, and I'll show you who's an immature asshole."
Oh, Jesus Lord. Yep. All right. Maybe I need to take him off my stud list.
Like, I don't care how good your play is. You want to be a freaking moron? You don't deserve to be put on a stud list because you're only hurting your team.
Yeah. May have to rethink my stud list from now on. All right. My next dud I'm going to go with. I am unfortunately going to have to go back to the team that was the top subject of our show. That's Freddie Peralta. After today's debacle of a start in Toronto, Freddie Peralta's ERA is currently sitting at 4.82.
And I'm going to just kind of piggyback on you because my next dud was basically Carlos Mendoza. So I'm just going to piggyback on you since you're talking about Freddie Peralta.
I mean, look, this is a guy that was 17-6 last year, had an ERA of 2.7, a guy that the Mets thought they were getting to be a frontline starter in their rotation, and he has been getting whacked all over the yard.
Yep.
I mean, the Phillies scored 10 off him 2 starts ago. The Jays got, I think, 6 or 7 more today off of him. Has not been a good start for Freddie Peralta in New York, so I got Freddie Peralta as my next dud.
And then since I'm not going to really get too much into Mendoza because we kind of talked about him already. So, like, my last dud is I'm going to say the Cincinnati Reds. Because coming into the season before Hunter Green got hurt, obviously losing Hunter Green changes a lot of things, but then you look at how good of a pitcher Chase Burns is becoming. The Reds' rotation is going to be scary for a long time if everybody gets healthy. But coming into the season, a lot of people thought the Reds were going to win the NL Central just because you had Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, and Chase Burns, who can all throw 95 plus. Maybe not Andrew Abbott, he's about 94. But all of them are capable of putting up ERAs under 3 when they're on. That instantly makes them one of the best starting rotations in the National League. But they've just been flat out awful this year. Like, Andrew Abbott's pitched well. Chase Burns has pitched outstanding. Hunter Green has yet to pitch. Nick Lodolo is having a massively down year compared to what he's done. But that freaking Cincinnati Reds bullpen is atrocious. And that's always been a strength of Terry Francona is he's always been able to utilize his bullpen better than most managers, which is why he had so much success in Boston, which is why he had so much success with Cleveland, because he could mix and match all these different relievers and put them in different spots and get the same results. He can't get anything in Cincinnati right now, and I don't know if that's more on him and the decisions he's making or just the players themselves not producing in the spots that they're called upon. But I think the Reds are, in my opinion, one of the two most disappointing teams this year so far.
I mean, yeah, when you bring it, when you go into with the expectations of that pitching staff and having one of the most exciting players in Ellie De La Cruz and bringing back Eugenio Suarez to be a power bat in your lineup, and you're not producing, yeah, of course you're one of the most disappointing teams so far this year. I completely agree. Also, by the way, how we were bringing up the NL Cy Young race earlier, I don't even think either of us put Chase Burns out. It came out of our mouths. Like that's how ridiculous the NL Cy Young race is.
Yeah.
There are guys that we forget.
Yeah.
All right, my next dud, and this pains me to say because I love this player so much, has been Geraldo Perdomo in Arizona. I mean, last year had a terrific year, hit 20 homers, drove in 100 runs. This year, OPS is down under 8, batting average only 244. Still having the plate discipline, though. Has only struck out 43 times. He's walked 52, so he's still being productive at the plate, getting on base. His OBP is at 360. 5 homers, 31 ribbies, but still just not compared to the year he put up last year. And I thought because of last year, he was poised for a big 2026. And so far, it really hasn't been that for him.
No. Who was
And I guess
my fourth that I had on there
so
before
when
I
you texted me, you texted me today. You had the Reds, Kodai Senga, Wilson
That's okay.
Contreras, and Ed.
Yeah. So kind of like Mendoza, Kodai Senga. So I mean, I could have put the Mets in general on the whole dud list, but since we took like a whole
You also had Edward Cabrera on there as well.
But yes, that's the last one. You know, Edward Cabrera. The Cubs traded for him, and they gave up a very good prospect to get him, which at this point in time, that trade, I think, is a little bit better in the Cubs' favor because Owen Casey is not producing Owen Casey would, but then again, he's a 22. Figure it out. Cabrera that the The guy's got a 5.30 ERA right now. He's missed multiple starts due to blister issues in his finger, which Craig Counsell said are going to be chronic, and there's going to be something that he's going to be dealing with all year, which, you know, that's music to my ears considering our whole pitching staff is in the hospital bed right now for the most part. And now I know you saw the video that George sent you about how he hurt himself at New York last week.
Yep, saw that.
But he's probably not going to pitch again this year because I'm no doctor, but the injury that he suffered trying to get that throw at first base, that ain't no standard 4 to 6 week hamstring injury.
Yeah.
Like, he had 3 good starts to start the year where he did not give up an earned run in any of his first 3 starts. Since then, the blister issue has become a thing, which is why he started giving up runs because he had to change his mechanics. He had to change all this other stuff. And now you have the massive injury he just got dealt and a 5.30 ERA. To me, that's not warranted of a top 15 prospect being traded to get a guy like that. So I think he's got to be one of my duds too, just because if the Cubs could do it over, I think they would have targeted a different starting pitcher from that same team, maybe a guy like Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, but even after his first, I mean, Sandy had like 3 or 4 really great starts to start the year. He's been getting hit around ever since, too.
But the thing with Sandy is, though, he's never had a blister issue. And apart from having Tommy John, he's been durable. So even if he's getting hit around for a rotation that needs arms that can consistently start every 5th day, at least I know I'm going to get that from Alcantara.
Fair enough. I'll give you that. And my last dud, I'm going to Baltimore, and I'm going Jackson Holiday.
Okay.
Former number 1 overall pick, son of Matt Holiday. I don't see it. I thought this kid was going to come in and have. I mean, people thought he had star potential. I don't see it.
At least not yet.
I mean, the plate discipline's awful, and I mean, I don't see it. He spent 200 this year.
Oh, that's a par for the course.
He had 242 last year, and then of course his first 60 games when he came up, he had 189. But I'm not going to count. Who cares about that?
Nice.
So those are our studs and duds for the month of June. A lot of good ones. A lot of real good ones. All right, Dustin, it's past midnight. I guess it's time to go against our favorite opponent, our always normal foe. And that's this damn grid. All right. Here's what we got this week, ladies and gents. We've got Astros, Padres, and 30 home run season across the top, and we have Guardians, Brewers, 2,000 career hits at the left side column. So, Dustin, where do we want to start this grid off at?
I can pretty much knock out Houston, I think.
Okay.
So the most obvious one for the Houston and Brewers would be Josh Hader.
Okay. You could do that for the freaking Padres and Brewers, too.
Yep.
We want to stick it with Houston still?
Yep, we're going Houston and we're going Josh. Oh, and then the other single biggest easy. The other single biggest reason why Houston won one of their World Series, Michael Brantley.
I was hoping you were going Brantley.
Coming from Cleveland, and that's another deal that I think if Cleveland could do it over, they would not have gotten rid of Michael Brantley.
I agree. Now we need 2,000 career hits to play for Houston.
Jose Altuve.
Okay. There you go. All right, Dustin. So he's knocked out one. Now we got to go over to the Padres, and we have 30 plus homer seasons.
I don't want to go the obvious route and say Fernando or Manny. I'm trying to go. Ooh. What about Ken Caminiti?
For where?
The Padres 30 home runs.
Padres aren't. We don't need a Padre for 30 home runs. We either need a Guardian or a Brewer.
Guardian or a Brewer for 30 homers?
Yes.
Oh, we're going for the Brewers. We're gonna go. I'm gonna try to get some points. I'm not gonna go with the obvious ones here. So for the Brewers, 30 home runs. Let's go Richie Sexson.
Oh my God. Richie Sexson. 4%. There you go.
And for the Guardians, we're gonna eliminate Jim Thome. We're gonna eliminate Jose
Manny.
Ramirez. We're gonna eliminate Manny Ramirez. We're gonna stick to that same time frame though. We're gonna go Albert Bell.
Albert Bell. Probably could have went Grady Sizemore, too.
Mm-hmm.
And now you need 30 home runs and 2,000 career hits.
30 home runs, 2,000 career hits. Well, I mean, Ken Griffey Jr.
Why not? Ken Griffey Jr. Now we have to eliminate that Padres middle category.
Padres 2,000 hits. Just throw Tony Gwynn in there because you can't talk 2,000 hits without putting Tony Gwynn in there.
Amen to that.
Still, like if this guy played in today's baseball where you don't have a shift, this guy would have 5,000 freaking hits in today's baseball.
I agree. All right. So now we have to go with a Guardian and a Padre and a Brewer and a Padre.
Brewer and a Padre, we can go Trevor McGill.
Was Trevor McGill a Padre?
Trevor McGill was a Padres starter before the Cubs picked him up as part of the Andrew Cashner trade, and then never panned out with the Cubs, and then the Brewers picked him up as a free agent.
McGill is 2021 to 2026, right here, right?
Yep. Well, no.
All right.
Trevor McGill is still, Trevor McGill, 2021 to 2026.
Whoa!
Did it
Dustin,
not
you
take it?
failed the. Nope,
That
it did.
is.
Dustin, you've cost us the grid.
No, I think the grid cost me the grid.
Well, looks like we're going to have to go 8 for 9 again.
Trevor McGill.
All right.
He never pitched in the majors with the Padres.
Ah, damn it.
He was with the Padres in 2021 and was traded to the Cubs that year. Never pitched in the majors with the Padres.
And this is why we need to fact check these things.
Bastards.
All right. It's okay. We're going 8 for 9 because I already have a Padre and a Guardian. I'm going with Yonder Alonso.
Yonder.
Yeah, we know we're only going to go 8 for 9. Thanks, Captain Obvious. So we need a Padre and a Brewer to get somewhat of our revenge here. So so we are now in a leaning race here.
What
The
what
grid
about
got us to.
Luis Arias? Luis Urias, or if that's how you say it.
There you go. 0.8%.
You want to know why I said that?
Why?
Luis Arias in 2018 with the Padres had 2 homers and 5 RBIs. 2019 with the Padres, he had 4 homers and 24 RBIs. 23, he had 3 homers and 18 RBIs. 2024, he had 4 home runs and 16 RBIs. 2025, he had 8 homers and 25 RBIs. Do you know what he did in his 2 years with the Brewers?
I want to know.
39 home runs and 157 RBIs.
That sounds like the most Milwaukee Brewers thing I've ever heard.
2 great years in Milwaukee. He ended up getting a massive payday in free agency the next year, and I don't think he's had more than 10 home runs and 70 RBIs in the 4 years since.
All right, so 2 weeks ago, the grid got us. Last week, we got the grid, and the grid got us again this week, damn it.
No, we got ourselves this week.
Oh, guess what? The grid is still going to be known as the victor this week, so we'll have to come back next week and get it again. But with that being said, Dustin, anything else we need to talk about tonight?
I don't think so. I haven't seen any news or anything come through this week at all. So, or this
Yeah,
tonight, I should say, not this week.
there was no late night Peterson trade this week like last week, so. Oh, actually, no, there was a little bit of. Go ahead.
I guess the only thing that I've heard, we'll see how accurate it is, but the Red Sox are still looking for third base help. They've re-engaged themselves with the Chicago Cubs in trying to get Matt Shaw to go play third. Cubs have said we are only going to talk if we get pitching in return. Peyton Tooley has been mentioned. Their other young starter has been mentioned. But the Cubs are in a position to give up their top 4 prospects and Matt Shaw to make a push at Garrett Crochet.
Interesting. Very interesting. And also, I actually forgot there is a little bit of news from today. A's will be without Brent Rooker for the rest of the season. He's undergoing a procedure to clean up something in his knee, so the A's lose one of their right-handed power hitters for the year.
Are you sure it's not to clean up his brain after the dumb comments he made about the CBA yesterday?
I'm not going there.
I mean, you can.
I'm not going there.
Because I think it's funny how he comes. I think it's funny how he comes out and makes those comments 2 days ago, and all of a sudden he's lost for the season.
Yeah, he's been banged up this year. I mean, he had the oblique
Yeah,
injury
but
early in the season.
do you want to know why? Do you want to know why I think it's funny?
Why?
Look at the team he plays for. A team that historically doesn't spend a lot of money because they don't have a ton of money, right?
Yes.
They gave him a 7-year, $72 million extension 2 years ago.
Yes.
But yet he's saying that, players are never going to settle for a cap. So if they think that's going to happen, then we're going to stop talking. I really don't think he's actually hurt as bad as he says he is. I think the A's are kind of using this to set an example. Like, dude, shut up. We paid you an extension. We're moving to Las Vegas, where we would like to have a team and would like to sign players to be in Las Vegas.
You're killing us. You're absolutely killing me, Smalls.
So I think he's hurt, but I don't think he's season-ending injury hurt. I think the A's are kind of using him as the example, like, dude, shut your mouth and let us handle this aspect of baseball. You just worry about what you're doing in the field.
Yeah, we'll have to say. With that being said, though, everybody, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another very fun episode of Hitting Home. We banged out a lot of good stuff tonight. Talked about Mendoza and the Mets situation, got to some new CBA stuff, gave our studs and duds for the month of June, and of course, shot ourselves in the foot on Beat the Grid, so we'll have to come back next week for some revenge. As always, thank you everybody who commented in on the Facebook side tonight. And guys, you all know the deal. If you can't catch the show live, you can always go back on the Facebook page up until 30 days past, and then it gets deleted. But you can always go back on the 609 YouTube channel and check out all the shows. And while you're over there, hit that like on Facebook. Hit that subscribe on YouTube. We continue every day to be building something special here for you guys, and we greatly appreciate all your support and all your comments throughout the shows throughout the week. But that's going to wrap it up for us tonight, guys. Have a great Thursday, since in my area it's 12:14. So have a great Thursday, and if you guys are out in this blistering heat, stay safe, stay cool, and try to stay hydrated, because this heat is not for the weak. So, guys, enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you guys next time. For Dustin Reese, I am Sam Nelson. Good night, everybody.
The following has been a presentation of 609 Sports Talk Radio.
Sam, what did you do?